We're talking Chargers, Lions. I want to get into Aidan Hutchinson because it technically has not had a sack in a month. And Neil Rule will bring that up.
Jesus
you know
Christ.
he will bring that up. And damn is right. You've seen other guys step up, and Aidan, you can't deny his impact. I want to get that clear. That's where me and Neil Rule kind of go separate ways. Sacks are important, yes, but pressures, although PFF heavily favors pressures and everyone freaks out about pressures, they are important. Like Montez Sweat last night, there was a lot of times where he didn't get a sack, but he made Bryce Young uncomfortable. That's a real thing in the NFL, and Aidan does that on a pretty consistent basis. Let me read you an interesting stat. Right now, Aidan Hutchinson leads the NFL in two key categories. This is per my good friend Danny Bennett. He tweeted this out. 28 quarterback pressures and 17 quarterback hurries. Hurries are important too, guys. That's also part of this. Bryce Young was hurrying a lot last night. That affects the game. Moves the quarterback out the pocket, especially for a guy like Herbert who likes to stand in the pocket and make plays. So my question to everybody is, you concerned about Aidan? How big of a game is this for him specifically? Because I would say, yes, it is a big game for him. But it's got to get to the quarterback by committee once again. And you saw that Monday night against the Raiders. Tracy Walker, Alex Anzalone, Julian Okwara got one, which in 40 snaps, he's got 2 sacks.
Yeah.
So Julian Okwara could be that a little bit of an X factor. Not saying he's going to be a 10-sack guy, but he could be the difference, though, if you're getting consistent pressure now that you don't have James Houston. I would say I'm not worried. I think Aidan gets back in the sack column this Sunday. Book him for 1 or 2 sacks. If he can have a game where he completely wrecks this, it could get out of hand very quickly. But Sam Flannel, what's your concern level for Aidan Hutchinson? Or are you going to defend him like a Michigan simp? Which way are you going?
Oh, because I'm a Michigan
No, I'm
simp.
kidding.
No.
Flannel, you are a Michigan simp.
Well, I am,
Okay.
but that has
to
nothing
say.
to do with my Aidan
I
Hutchinson
am a
love.
proud Aidan Hutchinson nut hucker.
Well, that's true. Thank you.
JV, you sexy bastard.
No, thank you for that, JB. My concern level is absolutely 0. And I read that pressure stat. I believe it was on Pro Football Reference, but I found some other ones on PFF, which is also very, very kind to Aidan Hutchinson. Here's the reality of the situation. This idea that this whole narrative, he hasn't had a sack in a month and people are just perpetuating it, I think it's just very short-sighted and very, very, I would say, ill-informed. Even though that's technically true, Aidan Hutchinson has been very impactful. Pressures have been all of a sudden treated like they don't matter by some. I'm not saying all, I'm saying some, but here's the reality when it comes to Aidan Hutchinson. I'll give you 2 very, very good examples. Aidan Hutchinson dominated the Chiefs game because he got consistent pressure on Patrick Mahomes. He did not get a sack. Although Aidan Hutchinson did not get a sack in the Raider game, remember when Jimmy Garoppolo had Devontae Adams wide open for his own end zone? If he hits him, it's probably a 97-yard touchdown. Guess who put the pressure on him to make him get rid of the ball before he was ready and inaccurately? Yes, that was Aidan Hutchinson. And if Jimmy Garoppolo hits that pass to Devontae Adams, maybe we're talking about the Raiders winning that game. I'm not saying that it's for sure, but those are the type of things that pressures do to opposing quarterbacks. And when you look at Aidan Hutchinson, when you look at what he's done this season, and I know a lot of people don't like PFF, but I think this is very, very important. Aidan Hutchinson is the 7th highest rated edge rusher according to PFF. 7th in the entire NFL. Do you know who's above him? Myles Garrett, Nick Bosa, Max Crosby, DeMarcus Lawrence, TJ Watt, Micah Parsons. So basically the 5 universally regarded best edge rushers in the NFL, plus DeMarcus Lawrence, and then Aidan Hutchinson. And when you look at those top 7, even though people like to get their you-know-whats in a wad over Aidan Hutchinson's lack of sacks, he still has more this season than Nick Bosa and DeMarcus Lawrence. And he has the 3rd most quarterback pressures out of all of those players, according to PFF, only behind Max Crosby and Micah Parsons. And oh, by the way, Max Crosby has played in 9 games. So I'm not worried at all about Aidan Hutchinson. He has still played incredibly well. And oh, by the way, just so we get these 2 things out of the way as well. You know how I know that Aidan Hutchinson has played really, really well? Because he is the best player on a defense that it went from last year being 28th in points allowed per game. This year it's 14th. It's top half in the NFL, which is exactly what we wanted from this defense. And oh, by the way, I know a lot of people want to bring up Kayvon Thibodeau and his sacks, and this really, really drives me crazy. Listen to this stat, guys. Just listen. Aidan Hutchinson is the 7th highest ranked edge rusher according to PFF.
What?
Hold on. Do you know where Kayvon Thibodeau is ranked? 85th.
Yeah.
85th.
Well, that's why partially I don't really live or die by PFF.
Oh, okay. So we all want to like give him Sackmaster K his flowers for having 8.5 sacks, and we want to crap on Aidan Hutchinson. Kayvon Thibodeau, like, I look at PFF for outliers. Aidan Hutchinson is ranked 7th. Kayvon Thibodeau is 85th. And by the way, Trayvon Walker is 86th, by the way, and he has 3.5 sacks. But he's almost as good as Aidan Hutchinson because he only has one last sack, right? It's just Aidan Hutchinson, to me, is the least of the Lions' problems. He is the defensive MVP, and you know what? If he does get a sack or two this weekend, he is right back in the Defensive Player of the Year race. Right back in it.
And to kind of speak more about the impact Aidan has, it reminds me of when I watched last night. I watched the Bears defense, and by the way, again, I'm not trying to make them sound like they're the 85 Bears, but what I am saying is the impact of having a guy that can just consistently win one-on-ones. You saw the impact if you watched the game of Montez Sweat. Like, they had, 3 or 4 sacks last night?
Yeah.
And they were bottom of the league in sacks. And I think they had 10 so far this season, and they had 3 last night. That's the type of stuff that a guy like Aidan can do for your defense. And when Robert Saleh spoke about this with Quinnen Williams, he said sacks are a little overrated. Even though, I don't think they're overrated, but to his point, it's more about, how he affects the game. Like, Quinnen Williams has half a sack.
Yeah. He sucks, right?
But exactly. That's not the case at all. You watch Quinnen Williams, he wrecks games, and he opens up things for Jermaine Johnson. He opens up things for the others on that defensive line for the Jets. That's what Aidan does here. He's double-teamed. He's getting chipped. He's getting everything thrown at him, and he still leads the league in pressures and hurries.
We got a video of Herbert talking about Hutch if you want it.
Yeah, let's play it. Here's Herbert talking about Aidan Hutchinson.
Preparation. Yeah, I've watched a couple games so far. Haven't had a ton of time, but they got a really good front seven. They get after the pass pretty well. They force a lot of turnovers, and so they're really well coached. And they fly around on defense, so it'll be a good matchup.
What about Aidan Hutchinson specifically?
Yeah, he's very talented. He's playing like a vet, and I think this is his second year, but he's about as talented as they come. Is able to do a great job of rushing the passer and playing defense. So he's definitely one of those guys you have to be aware of wherever he's on the field.
Yeah, like despite all what you say about Aidan Hutchinson, Neil will bring up he hasn't had a sack in a month. You look at the impact, you can't deny what Aidan does for everyone else. That's very clear. And if you got a Lee McNeil up the middle, at least generating double teams to some extent, it's going to help everybody once again. You need someone else who can just win in one-on-ones. And maybe Julian Okwara can be that guy until James Houston gets back. But you saw the impact of what James Houston did last year to Aidan Hutchinson. You had a guy that consistently, with his bend, could win one-on-ones. What happens? Well, you got to account for James Houston. Oh, well, there goes Aidan Hutchinson. He's free. There's a sack. That's what needs to happen this Sunday. Aidan will be fine. I'm not worried about Aidan in his sack numbers. He every single week the dude shows up. It's whether or not the guy gets completely triple-teamed or double-teamed, and then everyone else eats, like last week. And I believe they got 6 sacks on Monday Night Football, and Aidan didn't have one. But do you think he had an impact in that ball game? Absolutely, Lucas. He did.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, honestly, to Flannel's point about JMO, where it's like, if we're winning, who cares? And I can see, just as far as you're saying, like, JMO, like, I'm somebody that wants to see JMO get more involved, but if they're winning, I mean, what's the big difference? If Aidan Hutchinson goes out and has a performance on Sunday like he did against the Kansas City Chiefs, are we really going to be bitching?
Some people will.
If you're bitching about that, then you're just whining to whine just because something in your life is not correct in how you want it to be. Like Aidan Hutchinson, he's not having an all-pro type of season, but he's having a very good season. I would take Aidan Hutchinson, to Sam's point, out of any rookie defensive end that was in that class. I would take him. I would say he's a top 10 defensive end right now, and he's only in his second year.
Right.
So for you to be flipping out, not you guys, but people to flipping out about Aidan Hutchinson's sack numbers, like, go look at Max Crosby's sack numbers the second year. It's probably very similar to what it is right now. Aidan Hutchinson, in his third year, I think will develop those extra skill sets to get to the quarterback consistently after he splits these double teams. But right now, like Herbert's point, that's the guy that you key in right away. That's the most talented defensive player. The Chargers already don't have a good offensive line, so when you send double teams, it's going to be a big game from Lee McNeil. I hope John Kaminsky gets a sack, but to be freaking out over sack numbers right now with Aidan Hutchinson in year 2 after what he's doing besides that, like if Aidan Hutchinson wasn't getting pressures, then yeah, I'd be a little worried. But this man is a force through the run and pass game every game.
Yeah, and I'm 100% with you. I'm just reading some of these comments. Steve says Hutch needs to rush from the interior a little more. I mean, they'll move him around as they feel necessary. But again, when you have a Lee McNeil playing the way he's playing really well too. And I got to give credit. Lee McNeil's been really solid, more than solid, to be honest with you. Chuck Brewer says Hutch is a table setter and lets everyone eat. Yeah, and that's the thing too. Our biggest takeaway. We're all in lockstep here. We're different from people that want to come at Aidan Hutchinson because of a number in the stat sheet. It's more than that. But I'm not concerned about Aidan whatsoever.
Oh, and the funny thing is, you're right. Whoever said that, that's a great comment about he's the table setter that lets everyone else eat. But he's also, while he's been doing that, he's also ate the most. He still leads this team in sacks. That's the funny thing. 4.5 sacks in 8 games while having the impact that he has is a very, very good season. I mean, he's on pace for damn near 10. And a couple of the best examples that are given of guys, and I kind of mentioned them yesterday, who have been insanely good this year, just as good as they've always been, but their sack numbers aren't there, is Nick Bosa and Quinnen Williams. Nick Bosa only has 3 sacks, but he is still probably going to make an all-pro team. I mean, maybe not because of the lack of sack numbers, but he's had an all-pro caliber season. He is the 2nd highest rated edge rusher in the NFL according to PFF, and the same with Quinnen Williams. I know he only has a half a sack, and people are kind of, I don't know if Jets fans are freaking out, but it's a little eye-popping when you see that number, like, oh, what's wrong with Quinnen Williams? But when you watch the games, when you watch the impact that he has, and you look at the numbers, he is the 3rd highest-ranked interior defensive lineman when it comes to PFF. And a guy like Dexter Lawrence, his sack numbers aren't eye-popping. He's the 1st highest-ranked edge rusher when it comes to PFF.
You think that helps Kayvon Thibodeau a little bit?
A little bit,
yeah,
I would say.
I would say so.
I'm just saying, it's not all about your sack totals. It's important, but if you can put pressure on quarterbacks makes them play significantly worse. I know that's a novel concept, I'm kidding, obviously, but it makes quarterbacks throw before they're ready. It makes quarterbacks get flushed out and throw the ball away when they have an open receiver. It makes them throw passes before the receiver is out of his break. It makes them throw interceptions. It leads the quarterback into other defensive players so that they get the sack. It's just, I don't know. I think, and I will say this, I'll give the chat a lot of credit. It seems like they're kind of in lockstep with us as well today. It's just, Aidan Hutchinson is the least of the Lions' problems, and he is still the best defensive player on a defense that has improved significantly over last year. They're top half in the NFL in scoring defense, while, by the way, Jared Goff has thrown 2 pick sixes. Imagine where they'd be without the pick sixes. They might even be top 10.
No, it's a great point. Aidan Hutchinson and what he can do, he could be the reason, or he is the reason it could swing in the Lions' favor to win games. Like he's the biggest playmaker on your defense. It is what it is.